Hello, my fellow rebels. This is Wendy Guth, founder of Rebel on the Go Travel. And okay, I say this a lot. I am super excited, but I really made it. I'm like jumping in my chair. Today, I am interviewing Mary Rogers, who's the host of Experience 50 podcast for Midlife. And so I am a super fan of Mary's. I can't even tell you. So, and I was just thinking that I'm actually a little nervous today because Mary's background is in radio, and mine is not. so so I'm sure that this is going to be a wonderfully fun and exciting interview. And I also, again, I am a huge fan, and I have started to binge listen to Mary's podcasts, and there's 100. Let's see, you just did 100 and your 160th episode, and I haven't quite made it through all of them, but I will say that your feeling funky one is now like a go-to. So you mix the combination of interviews and then just your own personal experiences, and yes, the feeling funky, how to distract your brain, which is actually a fairly new one, but I have now gone back to it probably 4 or 5 times, just because I think it's one of those that, as a midlife woman, I really need. Yes.
Yeah, I think everybody does. When we're in midlife, we have so many changes going on, and we're trying to kind of get our arms around this new experience, and our brain can just do funky stuff to us. Your brain is not always your friend. And so I think the best news at this time in, not just in our life, but this space in time in history, is we're learning about all this stuff about our brain, and that, you know, it can just be a chemical. It isn't that your neighbor ticked you off. It's that your brain did something wacky, and there are things you can do about it. So I'm glad that you enjoyed that episode. I love, we're mutual fans of each other. I'm your super fan. I think what you do is wonderful, and bringing out that rebellious spirit in women is just awesome, because so many of us are hungry for it.
Yeah, I think so. And it's, you know, a combination of what makes us feel better. It's our mind, our body, our soul, and that's So I think we both offer those types of opportunities to midlife. And actually, your audience is also male as well, which is wonderful. Yes, I think that sometimes they are a bit overlooked. But we definitely share, So I was hoping to start with a little bit about your backstory, and where did the whole Experience 50 come from?
Well, I will tell you that I was telling someone recently, like, that the quick version of my, life story, and they said, you have led a charmed life. And I said, you know what? It does kind of look that way from growing up in a very interesting family. And my high school graduation present was a 25% interest in a brand new travel agency that my parents were world travelers. My mother had been a tour operator for years. And so that was a pretty cool way to start out. Yes. And I just kind of had every awesome opportunity literally fall in my lap. And I made drastic pivots in my career, in my personal life, married, divorced, all kinds of craziness. And I hit 50 and life was good. Everything was, on paper it looked awesome. In reality, it was awesome. Great job, great friends. And within 6 weeks of turning 50, my very best friend in the whole wide world dropped dead of a massive heart attack. I was there. I cleaned up the mess after the paramedics left. Oh, wow. And it was devastating. He was a bigger than life figure, not just in my life, but in my community. And I was his best girl. And then 6 weeks after that, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, which had killed my mother.
Oh,
So
mm-hmm.
I went through, planning funerals and doing everything that had to be done for my friend, and then taking care of my own treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a very supportive employer, supportive friends, but within a year of that experience, I had nothing. My well was dry. I was walking into meetings and where everyone was reviewing an Excel spreadsheet, and inside my head, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? This is how we're spending our time. This is my experience today, is arguing over how we're going to calculate the metric on this. And I quit. I quit my job.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was trying to figure out my new, better self after 50, I kept remembering what my friend who had passed away said to me the last time I was looking for a new job. He was like, honey, you don't need a job. You need a show. You need a goddamn show. Well, I had a background in radio of being the morning talk show host in our community in northern Michigan. I was like, you know what? Darn it, he's right. But I had all these rules. Like, I didn't want to have to deal with a general manager. I didn't want to have to deal with a program director. I didn't want to have to not swear. Do you know what I mean? It was like, this was going to be on my terms, damn it. And I did all this research, and all of a sudden here I am with a podcast. So what I love doing is speaking to intelligent midlifers who are interested in living intentionally,
Mm-hmm.
and saying, all right, how can I do this? They don't have to be as drastic as I was in quitting their job. And I mean, I look back now and I'm like, oh, maybe that wasn't the best idea, because I'm poor now, but I'm doing, something I'm passionate about, and I'll still figure out how to make money off this sucker at some point. But I just love connecting with that listener who is desperate for something, or doesn't feel understood, or is like, some parts of midlife suck. Mm-hmm. People start dying, Yes. And I love those conversations.
Yeah, yes.
And so that's the backstory kind of how I got here.
And which I absolutely love that. I mean, I think we all have pivots in our lives that, and I think it takes, and kudos to you for following your heart. Sometimes the mind and the checkbook don't always.
Oh yeah.
But you know what? That's okay. Speaking from someone who, I had a pivot actually at 50, and have had actually a number of, kind of sways. And then you wake up and you realize life is short, and that's, everyone says that, and sometimes, but it's really true.
Yeah.
It's really true. And doing something that is, I love it, doing something that is intentional and comes from the heart is, anyway, yes. So kudos to you for doing that. And, I tend to think as travel is being not quite quitting the job, because sometimes you really, not everyone can do that. And so traveling is sometimes just a way to step out of that every day and regroup and recharge and clear the mind and things like that. But but if you have the opportunity to really do what you're passionate and what your heart says, hey, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's I believe that if over 50 if you're feeling like things aren't quite working out, if you're not excited to get out of bed in the morning, that's sort of my test,
Yes.
And if you're a little too excited to go to sleep at night,
yes, exactly.
Time to do something, time to figure out, okay, what can I do? And I love your message of travel, because everyone I speak to, they're looking for experiences. And experiences are amplified when they occur while traveling. You can take any ordinary experience
Mm-hmm.
and make it just 10 times amped up
Yes.
when it occurs outside of your comfort zone.
Exactly. Well, exactly.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
In fact, and I was taking a look the other day at what are some of my most popular podcast episodes. And well, the first one, which I think is kind of interesting, I don't know why this is, but it's like a 4-year-old episode that continues to rank really high, and that's adult children of alcoholics in midlife. I don't know what that's all about, but right after that one is how to spend an inheritance, which is my story of how we, a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
spent an inheritance, and the number one thing we did as a family was we decided that we wanted to fund a trip for ourselves, our 33-year-old son, and our 18-year-old daughter. And we took them to Europe. We did England and Ireland.
Okay.
2 weeks. We paid for everything. And in fact, we did this with another family and their adult kid. It was, oh my gosh, I don't even know what adjective to use, but so many people at our age do come into an inheritance. And I'll tell you what, my message in that episode was, did it really make the best sense to spend 20 grand on this trip when we have credit cards we could pay? We have a retirement fund that isn't so full. Absolutely, it was the right thing to do, without question. And my husband and I, in fact, it was just a year ago, right now, as we're speaking, and so my Facebook feed is filled with memories from last year of this trip with, the red telephone booths in London and all of that. And I'm like, it was the best money we ever spent.
Yeah. And my parents both passed away in 2017. And I had the opportunity of taking my kids to to Europe in October. And we went for a month. And, and I will tell you, the whole time we thanked my parents on a regular basis but it is something that they will never forget. That they will never forget what they saw, what we did, the experience. And I'll tell you, our relationship was so amazing while we were away.
I agree. Because you take people out of their natural environments and everything is different. And it also felt like for us, our children were more adult-like.
Oh,
that we were traveling as peers, not parents.
It's wonderful.
It was just a spectacular experience, and I can't stress that enough. And I love what you just said, Wendy, about how you were thanking the parents the whole time. I think we toasted my in-laws pretty much at every meal.
Yeah. Well,
and made them a part of the experience
exactly.
and really incorporated their spirit into what we were doing, because they were big travelers, and we knew that they would feel very, very good about how we spent this money.
And if they could have been there.
Oh,
exactly. I realized that one of the last things my father said to me, he passed after my mom, and is he really regretted his regrets in life had to do with he wanted to experience Australia. He wanted to experience an African safari. I had wanted to experience walking up the beaches of Normandy with him and my kids, that kind of thing. And it was really so being able to honor them with these moments. And I can't wait. I'm ready to do it again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and I'll tell you something else for people our age. Many of us have kids who are still at home in school. They're not empty nesters yet. And I think there's a hesitancy on some people's part to put off travel until their kids are older. And even if you don't want to take this is a big thumbs up for traveling without your kids
Yeah.
as well, is it's an experience that allows you to kind of be an empty nester for a short period of time, say it's a week or two, to get away from those teenagers who are driving you insane, because it will drive you insane, and you need to get away, and you need to get far away from them.
Yes.
Where, hopefully they're in a safe environment, whatever that may be, but leave them alone for a while. I grew up, again, as I said before, my parents were huge travelers. And I think back in my childhood to like major events that happened, and a lot of them were like, oh yeah, that happened while mom and dad were in Portugal. Oh yeah, that happened while mom and dad were in Russia. Because they did travel a lot.
Yeah.
But what it did for me is it planted the seed that big international travel is normal.
Yes.
That it is part of life. And so for me as an adult, I just, of course, make it a part of my budget or my expectation of what my life will be, that it will include seeing this world that I live in.
Oh, exactly.
And it's our responsibility to model that global citizenship to our kids. When I meet people, I'm just astounded. I met one of our local bank presidents recently, and he told me that for his kids' high school graduation, they were going to Ireland, and it would be the first time that any of them had been out of the country.
Well,
and I couldn't believe that these kids had grown up with their sophisticated parents who never had any interest in leaving the country.
Yeah.
Live a little. Come on.
Well, and I will say that I remember the first time we went out of the country. Well, I remember the first time was Puerto Rico, which is the U.S., but still. And, but the first time we went on a cruise to Haiti, Jamaica, and Cozumel. And I remember like it was yesterday, and we're talking like almost 50 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
Asking my father why in Haiti people were missing limbs. And he looked at me and said, not every government takes care of their citizens like ours does. And and I was like, whoa. And even so, traveling the world has really deepened my love for my own country.
Oh, I think that that's absolutely true. And your dad and my dad would have gotten along, because when I was in Haiti at the age of 12, my parents loved hiring cab drivers and saying, show us the worst things you can.
Exactly.
And growing up in Detroit, my dad would do the same thing when we lived in a suburb of Detroit. And so we'd be going down to the Fox Theater or someplace for a fancy, dinner and a show. And my dad would pull off at 8 Mile and go into the ghetto in our station wagon with the doors locked. Yeah. And we saw some scary, scary stuff, but he wanted us to. And then he wanted to be sure that we appreciated what we had. He said, and he would say, do you realize how lucky you are? Do you realize just by chance you ended up in your circumstances and not theirs? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I think, our parents may have been the same people. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. In traveling, we did a lot of cruises. And I think I've shared this story with you, Wendy, just between the two of us. But my parents, like, economically were like way up, way down. And so in our family, when we were really poor, we would go on cruises, long cruises, because my mom was in the industry and it was free. And so my dad could turn the heat down. He was self-employed, so it wasn't like we were using vacation time. And we would go, not only would we go on, nice cruises, we would sometimes go on, like, one of them was a 3-week cargo moving cruise while the ship was being renovated. And so it was really just a bunch of travel agents and carpet layers.
Oh, wow.
And we went to Honduras and Guatemala, and there were no official tour excursions. Right. It was just, if you want to get off here, it wasn't even a real port. It was just they were dropping things off. And I was taken into the jungle with some carpet layers just for fun. And these Honduran people had never seen blonde hair. That's how far in it went.
Wow.
And we're like with machetes. I think I was like 13 or 14 years old, and I almost became a goddess. I mean, crazy experiences that, of course, sound dangerous. And I don't know if I would allow my own daughter to do it.
Oh,
But talk about an experience.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. I mean, my dad had a fascination with Mexico. And we went at times when the government said, don't go. I remember going to bullfights and
oh, wow. Well,
yeah.
back then, Acapulco was like
Well,
still a hot destination.
Yes. So I've been to Acapulco a few times.
Zihuatanejo, Ixtapa.
We went to every back place. Every place where you can find, the best. He would say to the random, where's the best turtle soup? And they would take us and weave us back. I mean, yeah, it was just, and I remember that, again, I'd never seen poverty like that in my life. But I learned you have to be adventurous. You have to, step outside of what you think. And yes, I'm not sure I would advocate that for my kids right now.
Yeah.
But
a little different now.
Yes. But but I also know that when I travel, I like to go a little bit off the grid.
Because you're a rebel on the go.
Exactly. And I just think it just makes, I don't know, it actually is, when you talk about the values of travel, that's what boosts my if I'm feeling a little funky, what clears my brain is to like go somewhere.
Yeah. Well, and I talk to people a lot about the smell of travel. That, for instance, in midlife, one of the things I tell people is, if you're feeling like you're a little stuck, just start doing things differently. Brush your teeth with your left hand instead of your right. Drive home the long way instead of the short way. Just order something at McDonald's you've never ordered before. These seem like really stupid little things, but it just kind of wakes up your brain.
Yes.
When you're traveling, your senses
exactly
just wake up, because, every country has a smell. It's true.
Yes.
As soon as on a cruise ship,
mm-hmm.
every port has its own smell. The ship has its own smell. And it's one of your senses that you just don't really think about.
No, and that is really fascinating.
And for that to be in the background of the whole time you're experiencing something is this different smell. Even going to the Bahamas, not very exotic, but even getting off a cruise ship or something, and you go into that straw market, and that's just the smell of straw.
Yes.
Is everywhere. And man, you come back home and you smell, someone's hat that's made out of straw, and you are back in the Bahamas all of a sudden.
Yes. Oh, and that's the beauty of, I'm also, it's all about this, and I'm all about the senses, and I'm a very tactile person. So I'm always, and like I remember one of my fondest memories is being a child and taking the bus into Lincoln Center. We were, and going to see the Bolshoi. I actually saw dance as a child. But what I remember more than him is the crushed velvet seats. And to this day, I'm always touching to see, will it replicate that feeling?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, it's so amazing. And it really just, I think it adds to our health. It adds to our well-being. And I do think that, when my mother passed away, everyone was sitting around and all they were talking about was traveling. That's all they talked about, where they want to go, where they went, when they were going somewhere next. And something about that made me feel really good.
Yeah.
As they're in, these are people in their 80s and even 90s, and they're just like, where am I going next? Where can I go?
Yeah. Well, I do think travel just feeds your soul, and it can be big travel. It can be little travel. There is well, in fact, when you were talking about the velvet seats, it reminded me, I have an episode, it's episode 141, and it's called, I think it's called On a Mission.
You have them all memorized?
What?
Do you have them all memorized?
Sure.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Like, wow, that's unbelievably amazing.
Yes, of course I do.
Yes.
But it was, what I was doing in that episode was just kind of, I hate New Year's resolutions, but I like to have a theme for the year, for myself personally, not for the show. And one of them is, I have a list of, I think, 10 different missions that you can go on for a year. One of them is Giddy Up, which I'll tell you in just a minute. But the other one of them is called Relish This.
Oh.
And it's like exactly what you were just saying, Wendy, about like, you remember that the tactile experience of that velvet chair.
Mm-hmm.
And I encourage people to kind of take a mental photograph, mental video, but that allows for sound and touch and smell. And when you are in a moment where you're like, oh, I'm having an experience right now, and it can be while you're traveling, or it can be at the beach by your house, but to just like put time on hold and soak it up and just say, I want to remember this, and really relish the experience.
Yes.
Put your damn phone down. Don't take a picture of it. Don't take a video of it.
Exactly.
Use your brain. Use your brain and your nose and your ears.
Yes.
And just soak it up so you can pull it back later.
Yes. Yes.
And it could be a chair at, where was it, Lincoln Center?
Lincoln Center. Yeah.
Right there. I mean, that's a relish this moment.
Exactly.
And one of my other missions is Giddy Up, and you'll love this as a travel person. So for the last 18 months, I have embraced Giddy Up. And Giddy Up is a phrase that I use whenever I sense, oh, I have an opportunity to get out of town.
Oh.
So if I hear about something happening somewhere that's outside of my hometown, I'm like, giddy up. Got to figure out, how are we going to do this? I have a little bag, always packed, little overnight bag, Giddy Up. So that if there is, and I'm very fortunate that my work schedule is my own. So if I talk to someone 350 miles away from me, and they say, you should stop by sometime, or you should see this restaurant, or you should try this, or you should see that, Giddy Up. And it's just my theme right now. So when we came into that inheritance, Giddy Up, it was like, all right, what are we going to do? We have an opportunity for travel.
Yep.
And it did become a little exhausting. I found that I wasn't home very much at all. I was giddy-upping way too much. So had to pull back. But it was just like, even like I would think of a family member who maybe wasn't someone I really wanted to spend a lot of time with, but they might die pretty soon. I better giddy up.
So I absolutely love that. And I will would love to invite you anytime you want to come to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba.
I'll giddy up.
We'll giddy up. But I actually really, I love that. I absolutely love that because, while I know that exotic travel is fantastic, but it's not always an option or, for whatever reasons. And one of the things that I like to look at is that it's really the experiences that you're trying to create, and that a lot of destinations can fit that same mold. So a fantastic beach in the Caribbean may not be an option, but why not a house in Hilton Head? Or, oh wait, you have wonderful beaches up in Michigan.
We do.
Yes, absolutely gorgeous beaches up in Michigan.
I'm a block away.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Okay. And the weather's good right now?
Right now. Giddy up, Wendy. Come visit. It's pretty
Exactly.
incredible. Yeah, I do. I have a beautiful block away, a beach with white sand,
Oh,
and it's
hey,
just,
we don't
people
have,
don't realize how huge Lake Michigan is.
that is very true. That
It's
is
a
very true.
great lake, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, I live on a bay, but when you stand at Lake Michigan, you cannot see Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I mean, you might as well be at an ocean.
Yeah. Which is
Some people call it the third coast.
oh, see, yes. Yeah, I haven't spent enough time. I actually have not spent enough time in Michigan or Wisconsin for that matter. So yes. So you never know.
Beautiful places, but
Yeah.
something that, for instance, my husband and I, as we are now getting older in our 50s, we realize we just cannot last through our winter here without a break. It's too much for us.
Yes.
I don't know if it's
Yes.
that our bones start to hurt because we're so old, or you know what? I think it's that I am just intolerant of being uncomfortable for
Yes.
prolonged periods of time. It is unacceptable to me at this age. And so
Yep.
are this, so we're talking in June, we are already trying to figure out what we're going to do to somehow get out of this
Yeah.
frozen tundra
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
for like 6 weeks next winter. But we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Well, well, the secret is we may be in Florida starting in December.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. I have, I had a similar, I found that I had knee problems. I had like torn meniscus that needed to be repaired and arthritis that sets in. And I have found that even in Maryland, but Maryland is different because it's a wet winter and the wet. Yeah. So I don't have any aches and I really don't have aches and pains in the Caribbean.
Right. Well, you don't. It does. I mean, now I understand why old people move to Florida.
And that's the thing. So it looks like he has a job opportunity that could, and I'm portable. So that's, yeah. So
Where in Florida, can I ask?
it looks like it's the Jacksonville area.
Nice.
Yeah. Yes. 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 So very close to the beaches, and I like Florida beaches. And I'm a Jersey girl, so I grew up at the beach, but I like Florida beaches. So
The same ocean.
yeah, it is. It's just, I think, a little cleaner down south. But anyway, that's another story.
It could be.
Yeah.
Well, good for you for being flexible and able to be portable with your career. I think more and more midlifers are looking for ways that they can do that. And another part of my life is I'm a certified small business consultant. I used to be the director of a program for the U.S. Small Business Administration, and I've led the National Association of Women Business Owners, and my real career path was in entrepreneurship. And if I were to start a second podcast or do something else, it would be in that area of helping 50-year-olds figure out how to run online businesses where they are portable.
The whole entrepreneurship is just blossoming and exploding amongst the 50 crowd.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's because we have so much to offer, yet it can be difficult for people to want to hire us. Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. Yes.
Yes. Well, and one of my businesses that I did start was Marigold Women in Business. And it was a Traverse City, Michigan based organization where I did entrepreneurial training programs for women. And then there was also a social aspect to it, more, just a support group for women in business. And this was going back to when my town was still a pretty patriarchal business community. And I loved working with women, especially women business owners. They're bigger risk takers than men. A lot of people don't know that. They make more money. Their companies make more money than male-owned companies. So I could go on and on.
Yeah.
But the
Well,
topic
we
near and
think,
dear to me.
yeah, and well, we think differently. Our brains function. Yeah, and one of the things that I had and still possibly am interested in exploring is, touching upon what are the things that over, like, midlife empty nester women want. It's they want, they need to be creative. They need to be, in a lot of cases, the safety nets, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's career things, also endurance. We get to a certain age where we say things like, I'm starting something but not finishing it. and travel lends itself to helping, whether it's, I want to want to learn how to kayak or surf, or do I want to run a marathon? Well, maybe not a marathon, a 10K somewhere, but things of that nature. And also, so these different elements, and well, I think you plan a trip around it.
I agree. Well, or for those of you, another great way to travel is to add a vacation onto a business trip. It's just, the most obvious thing to do.
Yes.
Take advantage of the company paying, for the airfare. You just do the spin-off.
Exactly. And that's what I always did. I was fortunate. I was a single mom for quite a bit. And so my parents would actually come along and they would watch the kids, and then we'd stay wherever we were and go off and explore. And oh yeah, that's always, and not to mention you want to decompress. There's that whole self-care. And actually that's another thing. There's a self-care element to all of this. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So I think we may have to chat about the entrepreneur stuff.
Oh, I would love to.
My mind is racing now.
Yeah. And yeah, that's another whole topic.
Yeah, and and I think, I had prepared like the list of questions, which I actually think that without having to ask them, we've really covered them. I mean,
awesome.
Yeah. So the one thing I love to do, I don't know if you've ever seen, it's the actors workshop where they have the gentleman who does the word and phrase association. So I don't have my fake mustache on. And
that's okay.
Him, but or the turtleneck. But
I'll imagine that.
Okay, exactly.
I'll imagine that.
Exactly. So yeah, I love doing a little phrase association. So
I'm nervous.
So
I feel like I'm at a new therapist. Okay.
Well, the first thing that pops into your mind when I say embracing my journey.
Terrified.
Oh, I love that. That's okay.
I'll just say terrified to everything.
Well, bonfires and deck chairs.
Smells.
Oh.
Smoke smell in my clothes. Campfire. Whenever I go to a campfire, I'm like, oh, I'm going to smell this for days.
And
unless I launder my clothes. And my hair.
Yes.
Well, I have a fire pit in my backyard. So,
yeah. Fabulous. And how about not having to ask permission?
Hell yes.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome. See, not too scary, not too scary. Oh, well, I cannot tell you how happy I am that we had a chance to chat today. And I want to send all the listeners to, it's experience50.com, which is so
yes, it is.
Remember. And I'll make sure to include that that web address as well. And thank you so much. This has been absolutely wonderful.
I've enjoyed every minute of it. I'm such a fan of yours. I love what you do. I want, middle-aged women, find that rebel inside of you and set her free. She wants to travel. She's got to get out of town. Tell yourself, giddy up.
Yes, I absolutely love that.
Well, I'd love to have people come on over and check out Experience 50, and I have a a weekly email as well. And I just love getting to know my listeners, and just like you do, and hearing their stories of midlife and what's going right and what's going wrong.
Exactly. And
that's fair game.
Yeah. And, you know, there's so many of us that as a tribe, as a herd, as a whatever, we can help each other. We can help each other through whatever it is, because no one is ever alone in any of these experiences. Sometimes, unfortunately.
No one's a snowflake here.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And I think we're all here to hopefully help each other. Well,
yeah. Thank you, Wendy.
Again, and I will be chatting with all of the rebels out there again soon.
Excellent. Thanks so much.